Okay, well, this is where the bow is birthed. We're going to do log splitting, so I can show you how to make bow staves. So this is ash, and it's a nice piece of ash. It's straight, it's not got twists in it. It's actually part of a conservation plan. I would have liked to have cut a tree down, but this was already cut down, so that's good. And I'm going to go through what we need to do. Okay, so the first part of splitting the log out is we're actually going to make wedges, and we're going to make wedges out of wood. Now, this is hazel that I found. It's straight, it's about the right width, and it's strong. You could make the wedges out of the same wood as the stave, and that one's ash, so I could make wedges from ash. But this was lying around. I thought it was decent, and I'm going to give it a go. So the tools you'll need is your knife, axe, and a saw. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these to length, so probably about 10 inches, something like that. And we're going to need about 2 or 3. So, 3 lengths, about this size, and the next part we're going to do is move on to shaping these. Okay, so we're going to shape the wedge, and we're going to make it very much just like a door wedge. It's going to go from thick to thin, but we want the thickness to start up here, and we want it to go gradually down to thin. We don't want it to start halfway down where we'd have a really steep edge. So I'll show you what I mean. As you can see, I want the edge to come way up here because I want it to slowly start thin, then go thick. Otherwise else it's just going to bounce out of the wood. Do this on both sides. Getting good with an axe and having a sharp axe is key to bushcraft. You really need to have these skills and be able to craft things like this, or you'll struggle. And of course, the vast majority of the bow is made with the axe. So this is what we've got. What we are going to want to do is just knock off these edges here. And that's basically it with the axe, so always sheath your axe when you're not using it. Okay, when we get to this stage, we're just going to finish things off. Obviously I'm going to be hitting this back bit here, so with a knife just take the edges off, otherwise else they'll fray and even split. Just like that. You could take the bark off, I'm not bothered, it's just going to come off when we start splitting things, I'm not worried about it. Again down here I'm just going to take any hard edges off. this front bit here. Again, that could fray and stuff like that, but there we have it. Is your wedge. So again, you'll need 2 or 3 of these. I can do it with 2, but if you have 3, then you've got a spare, and that's it. What I've done here is we're going to have to recut the face of this because this is a funny little angle. It's not quite straight, and it's going to affect my split when I try and I'm going to put a score down the front of it. So I'm just going to cut that off and then show you the next step. You may have heard it said that wood warms you 3 times. Once collecting it, once sawing it or cutting it, and the 3rd time burning it. So as you can see, my jacket and fleece has come off. And I'm halfway through. Right, now we have a nice surface because we want the split to go correctly, we want it to go where we want it to go, and this is much more satisfactory. Of course I could have done it with a bigger saw, but this is everything I had in my rucksack. Now what we're going to do is we keep it on something like this propped up. I mean, the side where I want to put my first split, I'll do 2 like this, so all going well, we should get 4 quarters. Doesn't always work out like that. Might lose one, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it down the middle there. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the axe on the corner here and I'm going to whack it with something heavy. Just like that. Okay, now we've got our axe buried in there. We can stick a wedge in. And you will probably be able to hear that cracking. Once we have one wedge in, we get the other wedge in, somewhere down here, which frees this wedge, and we start working our way down. And again, we've done everything here with tools I can carry in my rucksack, which is, you know, the basic bushcraft equipment, you know, knife, axe and saw. Now we're going to repeat that again to get our bow stave. Okay, I'm going to repeat the whole process again. So obviously this is the half log. Now we're going to make it a quarter. Once you get the hang of this, it's really easy actually. Ash is actually a pleasure to split. Again, sometimes these can run off course and you'll maybe only save one bow stave, but that's sort of just the world of bow making really. There we go. And actually that one did start to run off, but it'll be okay. That'll make a bow. These are your bow staves. I say, the last bit is taking the bark off. Now, certain times of the year you could just pull the bark off with your hand. You get your finger under it, you could make some, put a spud and push the bark off. Many people say that you should only cut down bow staves in winter. This is because of the saps that rise in the wood and that the wood becomes more dense this time of year. I've made bows from staves that I've cut all year round, so it's not something I worry too much about, although I would prefer take it down in winter. So we need to take the bark off, take a sharp knife and be very careful, because this part of the bow here would be known as the back, and it's very, very important part of the bow. It can't have any defaults in it or it'll break, because it's under a lot of tension, it's under a lot of strain. So you carefully get under it and just start taking the bark off. Between the outside bark and the actual wood is what's known as the phloem, which is a part of the tree we can use for making certain cordage, depending on the tree. Not particularly this one, but definitely on elm. But there'll be bits of the phloem left on it that we'll have to scrape off at a later date, you know, like that. But if we get the main bulk off, because if we were to leave this bark to go bone dry, obviously this is still green, this whole thing is green, this wasn't a dead tree when we cut it, I forgot to mention that. If we were to leave this bark to dry on, it would be a nightmare to get off. Not impossible, but it would not be fun. Okay, so this is basically it. There's a few little bits here and there that obviously need cleaning up. Anything that's left on here now is minor and would come off with the cabinet scrape, which is something you'll see in a later video. Again, like I say, this is very heavy. This is green, you know, it's still full of life really, and it's a lot easier to work when it's like this. So in the next video you'll see me shaping up the bow, getting it to its rough shape before I leave it to dry. You could just leave it like this and leave it to dry before you start shaping it, but I like to get as much done as I possibly can. I also don't agree with every bow maker out there, every bowier, on how long these do need to dry. If you get the rough shape out, obviously you've removed a lot of material that's going to dry quicker, and you know, I've heard people say it's a year an inch. I don't agree with that at all, actually. But another thing is, when you do want something to dry, it does need to be split, because when it was circular, it was one piece, obviously the outside would dry first and the inside wouldn't, so it would actually reduce in size and it would crack and split in a way that we potentially don't want it to do. So there you have it, a bow stave, now you know. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video on making bow staves. It's a really decent technique, because obviously you can use it for other things, whatever you need to split out. And also, like I say, we always use the main three tools, the knife, axe and saw, and there are various different techniques and skills that I have that we can use in the woods surrounding those three tools. And I find that very important, because obviously we can't be carrying endless amounts of kit with us. That's what Bushcraft's about, reducing the amount of equipment we take and mastering these basic tools. And in fact, if these were to break, then we need to learn how to use flint tools and that kind of thing. So if we can carry it around on our rucksacks and we can carry the knowledge in our minds, then we become a lot more self-reliant and we're free.